My brother's wife called my mom the maid in the $600,000 house I bought her, so I pulled out. I was 34 years old when I realized that buying my mother a house wasn't a gift, it was an invitation for my brother's wife to destroy everything we had left. The closing papers were still warm in my hands when Vanessa said it. "Make sure the maid doesn't touch my good china," she called out, her voice carrying through the open kitchen window. "She broke a plate last time." I froze on the front porch. My mother was standing right there in the kitchen, holding a duster. Her hands stopped moving mid-air. The duster trembled. "Vanessa," my mother said quietly. "I am not the maid." Vanessa laughed. That bright, tinkling laugh she always used when she thought she was being clever. "Of course not, Margaret. But since you're retired now and living here for free, you might as well help out, right? That's what family does." I stepped through the front door. My heels clicked against the new hardwood floors, the floors I had personally selected. The floors I had paid for. "Vanessa," I said. My voice came out steadier than I felt. "What did you just call my mother?" She turned around, all designer clothes and perfectly styled hair. Her smile never faltered. "Elena. There you are. I was just asking Margaret to." "I heard what you asked." I walked past her into the kitchen. My mother's eyes were wet. She blinked rapidly, trying to hide it. "Mom. Go sit down." "I'm fine, honey." Her voice cracked on the last word. "No. You're not." I turned to Vanessa. This house that I bought. With my money. For my mother. Do you understand what that means?" She tilted her head. "I understand that family helps each other. And since you were so generous to buy this place, we thought we'd all move in together. Be close. Like a real family." Behind her, my brother Mark appeared in the hallway. He had that look on his face. The one he always wore when Vanessa was being cruel. The one that said, "Please don't make this difficult." "Elena," he said. "We talked about this. It makes sense for everyone to." "You talked about this?" I laughed. It came out harsh. "You talked about moving your wife and kids into the house I bought for Mom? Without asking me?" "We assumed." "You assumed wrong." I pulled out my phone. The real estate agent's number was still in my recent calls. "Elena, what are you doing?" Mark stepped closer. "Calling my lawyer." Vanessa's smile finally faltered. "That's dramatic. We're just having a conversation." "No. We're not having a conversation." I looked at my mother. She had sat down at the kitchen table, her hands folded in her lap like a child waiting for punishment. "You called my mother the maid in the house I bought her. You made her feel small in her own home. In my gift to her." "She was just joking," Mark said. "Was she?" I looked at Vanessa. "Were you joking?" She didn't answer. That silence told me everything. The real estate agent answered on the third ring. "Mr. Henderson," I said. "I need to pull out of the deal." There was a pause on the other end. "Ms. Alvarez, the papers are signed. The transaction is complete. Then I need you to start the process of selling it. Immediately." "Elena." My mother's voice was soft. "Please. Let's just talk about this. Mom. I bought you a home. Not a hotel for Vanessa to run." I looked at my brother. "You knew. You knew she was going to do this. You knew she was going to treat Mom like help, and you let it happen. She's my wife. She's your wife. Mom is your mother." I turned back to the phone. "Mr. Henderson. I want the house back on the market. I'll cover any fees." "I don't care." Vanessa's face went white. You can't do that. We already moved half our furniture in. Then you'd better move it out. I hung up the phone. The room was silent except for the sound of my mother's quiet breathing. She was crying now. Not loudly. Just tears sliding down her cheeks. Elena, she whispered. I was so happy. The garden. I had plans for the garden. You'll have another house, I said. One where no one calls you the maid. Mark shook his head. This is insane. This is completely insane. You're going to sell a $600,000 house out of spite? I'm not doing this out of spite. I walked over to my mother and took her hands. I'm doing this because she deserves better. And I should have seen it coming. But even as I said it, I knew something else was wrong. Something I hadn't noticed until that moment. My mother's hands were shaking. Not from the confrontation. From something else. Something she was hiding. Mom, I said quietly. What aren't you telling me? She looked away. And that's when I knew. The house wasn't the real mystery. The real mystery was why my mother had been so desperate to have her son and his wife move in with her in the first place. My mother had always been independent. Fiercely independent. She had worked 2 jobs to raise us after my father left. She had never asked for help. Never accepted charity. But when I showed her the house, when I told her I was buying it outright, no mortgage, no payments, she had agreed immediately. Too immediately. And then she had asked if Mark and Vanessa could stay. Just for a little while, she had said. They're having some trouble. I had believed her. Now I wasn't so sure. Mom. I knelt beside her chair. What's really going on? She pressed her lips together. Shook her head. Margaret, Vanessa said. Her voice had changed. Softer. Cautious. Don't do anything rash. My mother flinched. And in that flinch, I understood. Vanessa wasn't just cruel. She knew something. Something my mother didn't want me to know. Something that had been going on long before I bought that house. Something that had started the moment my mother began receiving those mysterious phone calls. The calls she always stepped outside to take. The calls she never talked about. Mom. I squeezed her hands. Who have you been talking to on the phone? She wouldn't meet my eyes. Margaret, Vanessa said again. Stop. My mother's hands tightened around mine. I can't, she whispered. I can't tell you. Not here. Not now. I looked at Vanessa. At her pale face. At the way she was gripping the kitchen counter, knuckles white. Then I looked at Mark. He had gone completely still. Like a man watching a car crash in slow motion. Mom, I said. Pack your things. What? Pack your things. You're coming with me. Elena, that's ridiculous, as Mark started. Get out. I pointed at the door. You. And your wife. Get out of this house. Now. Elena. I said now. They left. But I knew the fight wasn't over. Because as I helped my mother gather her things, I found something in her bedside drawer. A piece of paper. A medical bill. With my brother's name on it. And next to his name, in handwriting I didn't recognize, a note. We can no longer offer credit. Payment of $47,832.95 is due immediately. I read the date. The bill was from 6 months ago. My mother had been paying my brother's medical debt. She had been hiding it from me. She had let Vanessa treat her like a servant in her own home because she was afraid I would find out the truth. And now I had to find out just how deep this rabbit hole went. I held the bill in my trembling hands and looked at my mother. She was crying again. But this time, she wasn't silent. Elena, she sobbed. I'm so sorry. I didn't know what else to do. He's my son. He's your brother. He was going to lose everything. I closed my eyes. And I made a decision. The house could be sold. The money could be recovered. But the lies? The lies had been building for years. And I had only just uncovered the first one. The hotel room smelled like stale coffee and desperation. My mother sat on the edge of the bed, her hands wrapped around a paper cup she hadn't touched in 20 minutes. The medical bill was on the nightstand between us, glowing under the cheap lamp like an accusation. $47,000, I said. That's what Mark owed? She nodded slowly. And you paid it. Another nod. With what money, Mom? You're on Social Security. You have a small pension from the factory. That's it. She finally took a sip of the coffee. Made a face. Set it down. I had savings, she said quietly. From when your father left. I never touched it. I was going to use it for. For what? She looked away. For emergencies, she finished. I stared at her. Mom. This wasn't an emergency. This was Mark's problem. Mark and Vanessa's problem. Why didn't you tell me? Because you would have done exactly what you're doing now. Her voice cracked. You would have gotten angry. You would have confronted them. You would have. I would have helped you, Mom. That's what I would have done. You always help. She finally looked at me. You've always been the one who helps. Since you were 15 years old and working at the diner after school. You gave me your paychecks, Elena. Every single one. I never asked you to. Because you needed them. Because we needed them. She reached for my hand. But Mark. Mark never had that. He never had your drive. He never had your strength. He just drifted. Drifted into $47,000 of medical debt? She flinched. It wasn't his fault, she whispered. He got sick. He had a surgery. The insurance didn't cover everything. What surgery? She bit her lip. Mom. What surgery? The same one your father had, she said. Right before he left. The air left the room. Dad had surgery? Your father had a tumor. She said it like she was confessing a crime. Benign. They removed it. He was fine. But the bills were too much. He couldn't handle it. He thought if he left, he wouldn't have to pay them. He left us because of medical debt? She shook her head. He left because he was afraid. Afraid of being a burden. Afraid of failing us. He told me once, years later, he said he thought we'd be better off without him. I felt sick. Mark had the same thing, I said. The same tumor? Same thing. Same surgery. Same hospital. Same doctor. My mother's eyes were wet again. I found out by accident, she said. Vanessa called me from the hospital. She was crying. She said they were going to lose everything. The house. The cars. Everything. She begged me not to tell you. She begged you not to tell me? She said you would judge them. She said you would make them feel small. She said you always made them feel small. I stood up. Walked to the window. Stared down at the parking lot. Mom. I bought Mark a car 3 years ago. I paid for his daughter's braces. I gave them money for their anniversary trip. How did I make them feel small? She said you made everything look easy. She said you flaunted your success. She said. She said a lot of things. I turned around. And you believed her? My mother looked at her hands. I believed that my son needed help, she said. And I believed that if you knew, you would try to fix everything the way you always do. But this time I didn't want you to fix it. I wanted to fix it myself. I wanted to be the one who saved him. I sat back down. Mom. You gave them almost $50,000. That's not saving someone. That's everything you had. I know. Her voice was so small. I know. Did Mark even know where the money came from? She was quiet. Mom. Did Mark know? He thought I had more savings than I did. He thought the money was extra. He didn't know it was my entire retirement fund. And Vanessa? My mother shook her head. She doesn't know either. She just knows I helped. I closed my eyes. The pieces were starting to fit together. Ugly pieces. Sharp pieces. Vanessa called my mother the maid because she thought my mother was weak. Because my mother had given them money without conditions. Without boundaries. Without respect. And my mother had let her. Because she was afraid of losing her son. The house, I said slowly. The house I bought. You wanted them to move in because they couldn't afford their rent anymore, she whispered. Vanessa lost her job 6 months ago. Mark's been working part-time. They were going to be evicted. I thought if they stayed with me, they could save money. Get back on their feet. I thought. You thought you could fix them. She nodded. Tears streaming down her face. Mom. I took both her hands. You can't fix them. You can't save them. They have to save themselves. But Mark is my son. And I'm your daughter. And I just bought you a house. And I would have done anything in the world for you. All you had to do was ask. She broke down then. The kind of crying that comes from deep, deep exhaustion. The kind of crying that's been held in for years. I held her. And while I held her, I made a decision. I was going to sell the house. Every penny that came from it would go back into my mother's savings account. I would take care of her. I would always take care of her. But Mark and Vanessa? They were on their own. For the first time in their lives. I pulled out my phone and texted Mark. *meet.